All right, let's dive straight into it because we have a lot of things to say basically. And I wanted to give this presentation because I really noticed, like in my daily conversations with like a lot of random people and also online, that there seems to be like a lot of fear around the march of AI, of about the rise of AI rather, and maybe rightfully so. Because here we have this graph where we basically can see that every month there are like thousands of employees like being laid off by tech companies. We have the CEO of Uber talking about how 80% of the jobs will be replaced by AI. We have discussions about the dev of the software as a service, right? Basically, everyone and their mom is all of a sudden like creating their own software platforms. So yeah, like all these fears have one thing in common, and it feels like we're losing control of the situation in a way. At least that's the feeling that people might have around the situation. So it got me thinking. I was like, okay, is there a way to gain back our sense of control, our sense of agency? And is there also like a way to really leverage the use of open source software and AI to gain back our agency? And like one way of doing that is like maybe to start your own business, right? That would be kind of nice. So that's basically what this presentation is about. But first, a short intro about myself. I am Vincent. I am currently enjoying my employment here at Stacks in Groningen. Me and my girlfriend also train dogs. Like this, my dog Mila, 2-year-old big dog. And I'm also a self-proclaimed UX expert. So let's talk business. So for the purpose of the presentations, I kind of like loosely defined the presentation. Or sorry, like I kind of loosely defined a business as such, where we define it as an entity that trades its service and or expertise for like some form of incentive, right? And the incentive in our case is going to be money, but it can be anything, you know, maybe like chocolates. So that's going to be our definition of the business. And with that, we can also like really answer the question, okay, can we truly VibeCode a business, right? So now that everyone's on the same page, we're going to look at two kind of anecdotal case studies. The first one is Syndra, which is a conversion rate optimization agency. And the second one is HappyCharts, which is a stock trading simulator, which is basically like our SaaS product. And to start off with Syndra, I guess like as a kind of like an agency, so to say, the biggest question is like, how do we gain customers? So it got me thinking like we need to start to have customers in order to adhere to the criteria. Got me thinking, okay, how can we achieve that? And I was reading this book, actually like a really great book. I can recommend this to everyone. Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. And there they are talking about the reciprocity rule. I hope I pronounce it properly. Which basically tells us like, let's say I give you a gift, then you feel like more obliged to give me something in return, right? So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I want to gift the people, someone that I'm going to approach, something for free, in the hope that they will do it like business. It's kind of like the same reason why I go to Café Zondag, for example, in Noord-Plantsoen, even though Café Rome has vastly superior coffee. And it's all because that kind lady at Café Zondag gives my dog like all cookies, like usually 3, which also gives her like some diarrhea in return. So we're going to give them something. And we're going to do a free CRO audit, basically, right? It kind of goes as well. It's not super duper important to know what kind of document it is, but basically how we're going to audit their website is like, okay, there are like a couple of facets that we need to score, right? So if like first impressions, call of actions, the forms, how well are they? And we score them between 0 and 5. And each one is like basically like an average of the aggregates of like multiple other things, like, right? So for the first impressions, we have like value propositions, call to action. Is there like a false bottom present? And we basically need to write these documents itself. So if I would do it myself, I spent around 2 to 4 hours for each document. And it takes me roughly like, I did like roughly 10 manually at the start. Right, so it's like a big time sink and like a big time bottleneck. So I wanted to optimize that. I want to optimize to well, again, like kind of gain the agency back. And I wanted to use the leverage, I want to leverage AI and open source software in order to achieve that. So we're going to optimize the workflow. And for that, I wanted to use like Python and LangGraph plus LangChain, because it really gives us like this Pythonic, agentic orchestration, workflow management architecture, basically like a lot of words, lots of buzzwords. Basically all it is like a workflow management architecture. That's in the basics what LangGraph is. And I really want to gain back my time by optimize the documents. So we want to have like multiple agents to write my documents, right? We have like all this, just to go back, we have all these 8 chapters. There are like some things we have to collect the HTML, etc. So really like a lot of things to optimize, and AI is perfect for that. So that's what we're going to do. And in order to understand how it's basically working, I want to quickly go over the basics of LangGraph. So we have like an old way of printing hello world. But there's like a completely wasteful way of achieving the same thing in LangGraph, which is basically, I don't go over everything, but we basically create like a mock LLM where we pretend that we have like some input and it returns us the hello world at the end. And we're going to create our workflow, which is basically a graph, or you can see it as a tree that consists of nodes and edges, right? So nodes is just like a function that accepts any executable. And the edge defines our branches, so we can create our tree, or in our case, in this example, a stick. So this is the workflow, right? So if I would have to make these documents myself, then I would have to go to navigate to the website, analyze all the sections, write each section, score them, make sure it's done properly. We complete the documents by also like maybe you have like some value proposition that you want to include in there. And then you want to check whether your work is actually done and correct. And that is how to, this has been basically how your graph would look like in LangChain, or not the LangChain, but like the abstract view of it. So you have like a site navigator, navigates to the website, right? You have like a site parser, and that's our first agent that we're going to put to work. And the goal of that agent is to parse all the HTML and separate the pages into the different categories that we have to write. So there are like basically 8 categories that we have to write, as we could have seen it from the start. What else? Oh, then we have like some parallel writing going on. I will show you how to create it later. And then they all come together in the document creator, and then we have like some reflection loop, that's basically like the check document. And in LangChain, and LangGraph, sorry, what we can achieve is like, okay, we can say like we have like some output here, we check it, is it correct? If not, we go back with a new system prompt, we instruct them like, hey, these things are not done properly, please fix. Or it's good enough, and we go straight to the end. Quick overview of like how you could set up like something like this, right? So at the top, we have like a graph.py that contains our workflow, state contains a state. Some interesting things are I/O. So basically what goes into the LLM and what goes out to the LLM. It's really important to define, and I'll show you later why that is the case. Nodes, very simple. Prompts, not super duper interesting. Tools, really great way to give your LLM access to interact with your code base. So let's say you have something that you have to retrieve from the database. The LLM can't do that, Anthropic can't do that. So you basically tell them, hey, we have this tool function here that you can use, and that's how you can query with the database. That's something that you could define in the tools middleware. Probably everyone who is familiar with like a Starlet or like a fast API, maybe Django. For every request that requires like a function call, we define it in the middleware. And this is then how our graph will look like in code. So it's again like rather simple. Like you build your graph by putting in some state. This is basically like a typed dictionary, so you can basically input whatever you want. You define your nodes, not super duper interesting, and then you define your edges. So firstly, we still have like our linear route of the LangGraph. And then the cool thing happens is we still need to write our parallel agents. So that's what we do in this first for loop. So we start from the same node, and we branch off into multiple similar nodes, which are the writers. And they also need to converge again, right? We need to converge the outputs, aggregate the outputs. And that's what's been done in the second for loop. So we see here the start of the node and here the end of the node. And then they converge back into this document creator. Also, like a cool thing to add is like these conditional edges, right? You can create your routing function. And that's one, in this case, in our example, it basically looked at our state of the, where is it? Of our document creator, of our reflection node, rather, sorry. And then there are two outcomes, right? We either go to completion, or the outcome was like document creator. And based on that, we route back, right? So completion goes to the end, and document creator goes back to the document creator here. And that creates our agentic loop, basically. So, a couple of essentials. So we start off with I/O, which is, again, like what goes in and what goes out. Now, if you're writing your prompts, especially if you let the LLM write your prompts, what it usually will do is, okay, we have like some output that we expect, right? And it outputs it into JSON format. And what you would get is like, okay, you basically pollute your whole system prompt by telling them, okay, we need to have like these specific rules, these are the schema, please do this extra formatting, there are like more rules, all creating this context rot and truly like polluting your system prompt, making it less efficient and not really do its job. It's less likely that it will do its job properly. Not only that, but then you probably need like some parser function. I'll just like go quickly over this. And that parser function needs like a wrapper function, right? Because we need to like retry after a couple of times. Also wasting tokens, wasting money, wasting the user's time, basically. So that's really something that we want to avoid. And we can avoid that by creating these pydantic models, which we have defined in our I/O folder. And you basically tell them, okay, these are indeed the fields that we want. You give them like a description of what everything means. And then all you have to do is when you create your agent, all you do is you tell them, okay, we have this response format that we just defined. And then you can call the result by saying like, okay, give me the result.structured response. Way cleaner to do it like this. And you did not pollute your system prompt, and you did not introduce context rot, which is super duper important. Now, tools. As I said, it's like a nice way for your LLM to interact with your code base. And what I needed to do, for example, is like I analyzed my tone of voice so that every writer has like basically a way of writing as I would have done, at least like closely related, right? So it's really important that every LLM call basically has access to my tone of voice. So what you might do is like from line graph, you use their tools decorator, and then you basically give them a function, hey, please use my tone guide. Or we also have like a speed test, and you basically say, okay, these are the things that you have to do in order to write the speed test sections, right? We have like the server that does the same thing. And then again, when you create your agents, all you have to do is give them a list of tools that you want them to use. And again, this is all to avoid context rot. This is all to avoid the pollution of your system prompts. And it really gives the agent the agency, funnily enough, to run your code. Now, one drawback is that the agent has the agency to run your tools, which makes it non-deterministic. Which is quite annoying if, in my case, for example, where I need my writers to use my tool calls. So what you can do is like you introduce some middleware, which basically is, for every request, we force something to happen. Can be logging, can be everything. In my case, I forced, where's the function here? I forced the use of the tool calls. Now you might argue, why don't you just put it in your system prompt? And again, the name of the game is to not pollute your system prompt in order to not create context rot. And then again, you give your create agent here the middleware, and they get the tools that they want to have. Some fun quirks. The first one is like rather easy, but really important. So I have like all this HTML output that comes from this site navigator. I think I go to a maximum of 6 pages, but in some websites that's like a lot of HTML. And so what will happen is you will reach your limit, first of all, of Anthropic. I think it's like 25,000 tokens or something. Or you pollute your system prompt again by imbuing all this HTML and say like, hey, please parse. So what you want to do, like if you do not want to run into issues, you just use like, I just use like a simple trick, asyncio.getter, and you give them the parse function. And it goes to like, you create for every page, in this instance, you create like a new LLM call. Again, keeping your system prompts clean, not polluting the context window. It's really important, really maintains the name of the game. Now, let's say you want to do some fancy scraping work. This was like from another project, funnily enough, but at some point, I did not get any results back from my scraper. And I was like, why is that? So I was scraping Reddit for some user data to go into my models. And at some point, my IP address of my Docker environment was blocked. And I was like, okay, I still need my Reddit data, so I better come up with a solution. And turns out it was rather easy. So if you have a Docker environment, and I would actually like recommend it if you want to run your scraper, you can use like an image called Gluton. You can create like a free account on Proton VPN, not sponsored, it's all free. You can make use of their free proxy servers. And that allows you to write your scraper if you use Playwright, for example. It's actually pretty nice. Not sure like how it's done in Selenium, but all you have to do is like tell them like, hey, we have like this setting proxy, and we like point them back to the settings of your proxy server, which is basically this in this case. So that also like allowed me to avoid being IP banned basically from Reddit. You can also use it for Twitter, etc., and avoid their high API costs. One more other cool thing about these agents is there are kind of like 2 ways like how to prompt, but maybe 3 ways. The first is you just like write your prompt, which gives some results, or you can make it more structured, right? And there are like a couple of ways to do so. Like that you can kind of come into like prompt engineering for whatever that's worth. And there are like 2 ways to basically create like a reflection node. You can tell them how to process the request, but you can also make them think of what to process, right? So there's like a slight distinction in there. And like I'm not sure if it's like a group or just like a singular name, but there's been some research been done about, you can read it on this URL. This is, by the way, like a great source if you want to read research papers about like LLMs and other scientific tools. And we basically want to increase the user satisfaction of like, okay, how well was my prompt executed? Or like, how well was my intent of the prompt processed, right? So I think they borrowed like a framework from journalism, which basically asks us like all these questions, right? They call it the 5 W's, 3 H's framework. And it basically explains the LLM, okay, what should we process? And it really increases your success rate of the prompt, of the results that you want. Combine that with chain of thought prompting, which is basically you explain the LLM how to process. So I think in the earlier models, they kind of sucked at doing math. And if you rather explain them, okay, like this is how you would solve the problem in steps, that's chain of thought prompting. So you really explain them how to process, basically. And if you combine those 2 things, you get like really great results. I can really recommend that. Really recommend this read if you can make like pictures of it, or the slides will probably be available somewhere. So those are the fun quirks of LangGraph. And we have optimized our process. I've gained back my time. So instead of like spending 2 to 4 hours for each audit, I now spend like, I click on a button, I click my website, and I think it roughly is done between like 5 to 10 minutes. So, in order to answer the first question, did we adhere to these rules? Did we indeed create a business according to the loosely defined definition that I've just created? And it turns out, yes, I actually get my first couple of customers doing this. So that's actually pretty nice. Now, how much time do I have left, by the way?
It's 2:33, so you've been about 17, 18 minutes.
Perfect. So let's quickly go into Happy Charts, which is a stock trading simulator. And I will not go too in-depth into the code base. Rather, I will not go too into the code base at all because it's not super duper interesting in all honestly how Happy Charts is set up. What it does highlight is like how you can really create a software as a service that actually like people use to this day with you not basically touching the code. So that's something that I want to highlight. And the basic idea and concept is basically this. So we have like all this historical pricing data of like stocks. You create a snapshot and you basically simulate what you would have done in the real life. So you can basically bet to the price going up and you can bet to the price going down. Fun little experiment. Who thinks price goes up? Price goes down? Wow, more for down. Congrats, down people. So yeah, that's basically like the basic premise of the platform. So I kind of wanted to show the scale of what's possible. So I used Git Nexus to create this image for me. And it basically turns your code base into a vectorized space, right? So all the files will be nodes in this vector space, will be clustered. So files with semantic meaning that are close to each other will be put into this graph. Also has like an MCP server for your Cloud Code to interact with, for example. And it's really nice for coding research, right? It's really nice to, let's say I want to add a functionality to the backend, then it has like all this context. Let's say I want to tweak something in this file here, but it's probably closely related to these files as well. So also please do check out these files. It's actually really like nice tool. And it gives us like an image of the scale, right? So we have like 30K nodes and 50K edges. Also has some users. So these are statistics of when, I'm not sure like how dated this is, by the way. I think I made it like yesterday or 2 days ago. But like there are some like pollution in the data. So we have like 160 registers on this platform already. And that was at the time, the first 6 months of this platform. I think the platform is now 7 months old. Registering was not mandatory. Now it is. So we have like some users. We have like some rounds played. So every snapshot that you see here is a round, really. So almost 3,000 routes are played. So I really wanted to just to show this of like, okay, you can really create something with AI, with open source tools that people are using, slowly more using. And I basically did not do any marketing for this platform yet, because that's just like the least fun aspect of coding, basically, right? So also, in order to come back to the research question, did we adhere to these standards? No, we did not. For the second part, because the payments were installed, I think, 2 weeks ago. So again, no marketing, no payments. It was basically free for the whole existence. But it really like showcases and highlights what can be created if you wanted to and if you're creative. Maybe not even when you're creative, by the way. So yeah, that's kind of like my presentation. So thanks for the attention and I guess to the question rounds, right?